Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reclaim Your Power. We've missed you. And we're now going to start talking about the next step. And before we jump into the next step, I just want to, for those of you who need a reminder, my name is Shawn Behrman. I am the founder and creator of Reclaim Your Power. And the last exercise that you guys had to do was to start keeping track of all of your disempowering conversations. When you first started capturing your disempowering conversations, it occurred that there were a lot of them, kind of like rocks on a beach. You look out sometimes and all you see is disempowering conversations. And it might seem never ending, those rocks on the beach. But I promise you, if you're willing to look more closely, to explore and play in that mud pie or in that pool, you would be willing to discover that there are only a few different underlying conversations that run the entire show when you're disempowered. The great news is that there aren't millions and millions of disempowering conversations. What would a geologist see if she were looking at the beach? She would see themes, just a handful of different rocks, different kinds of rocks. What you are actually seeing out there is hundreds and hundreds of variations on a small number of common themed conversations. So some of you have a really long list of disempowering conversations now written down. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to stop the video now and you want to hear from every single person in your group. What is one of the disempowering conversations that you have? So take a moment and pause the video, okay? And then ask everybody, what is one disempowering conversation that you have? Just to remember and get clear on what they are again. So pause the video now. All right, welcome back. So you want to picture all of these disempowering conversations are kind of like leaves on a tree. And there's all kinds of themes that we hear. So one of the things that we will do is we will take a look at those themes. In our experience, almost all of them fit into only 3 categories. In fact, all of them are kind of like different branches on the tree. There's one branch called Disempowering Conversations About Yourself. There's another branch called Disempowering Conversations About Others, and still a third branch called Disempowering Conversations About the Way It Is or the Way the World Is. Now, we hope all of you either used the Disempowering Conversation Journal or started keeping track of all of your disempowering conversations on a piece of paper. Why? You can even keep track on your phone, by the way. If you have a smartphone, it can keep notes. Why is that important? Because we can do some really great work once we have all that data, all the kinds of disempowering conversations you have. So keep track of your disempowering conversations even after the course is finished. And on that handout, you want to write down as many disempowering conversations as you can. For example, maybe you have a disempowering conversation that you're too skinny or too fat or too smart or too stupid. Okay, or maybe you have a disempowering conversations about others, that they're untrustworthy or selfish. Or maybe you have a disempowering conversation about the way it is, that the government is stupid or inept or intrusive or controlling. So one of the things that you're going to start to do is you're going to start to distinguish all of the themes, okay, that you have. And we're going to have a really great time doing that. So you're going to pause the conversation. And each person is going to list off all the disempowering conversations you had. And while that person is listing them off, okay, so person number 1 is going to go through their whole list of disempowering conversations. And while person 1 is doing that, the rest of you want to listen. You want to listen for what are the common themes that run all of those disempowering conversations. And you can take turns and feel free to steal from each other. So each person's going to get a chance to do this, okay? So you're going to stop the recording and you're going to go to person number 1 and you're going to say, give us all your disempowering conversations. And once they've listed off all of them, you're going to listen for the theme. What's their taproot conversation about themselves? What's their taproot conversation about others? And what's their taproot conversation about the way the world is? So stop the video and go and do that work and then come on back. So what we're saying is that almost every disempowering conversation you have boils down to common themed conversations that are running in the background. When you identify your own taproot conversation, you'll feel it in your body, almost in a visceral way. You will know it is the central theme for you. There's a lot more work to do once you've mastered these conversations. All right, great. So we're now going to move into the next conversation. Human beings are very basic. We do everything with an agenda. We don't do anything without a payoff of some kind. We have lots of really great reasons why we do everything. All right. And we're now going to teach you the 3-step process, but in that process, you're going to discover all of the reasons that you have for doing what you're doing right now. And I'm sure lots has been showing up for you. So you want to take a look. Whatever you're getting out of it, there's a payoff. You're getting something or you're avoiding something. So keeping those disempowering conversations in play is because we get something out of it. So let's summarize what we've covered in the course so far. We said that what we consider power and what is not, and what it means to reclaim that power. We talked about situations, activities, and people that create being empowered versus disempowered for ourselves and others. We talked about how empowerment is a moment-to-moment phenomenon and the impact of those disempowering conversations and they have in our lives. We also distinguished between the identity and our authentic selves, and we talked about how we can become aware of the disempowering conversations that get in the way. And then finally, today we talked about the common themes and taproots for disempowering conversations in general. And more specifically, we started to speculate what our taproots and common themes were. So now we're ready to move into the juicy substance of this program. There are only 3 stages required in moving oneself from being disempowered to empowered quickly. We'll start with stage 1. We call this the red light. Now, what do you do when you come to a red light and you're driving a car? You stop. At least we do in North America. I've discovered in the Dominican, where I currently live, not everybody stops at red lights. But why do we stop? Because if you don't stop at that red light, you're going to get schmucked by somebody because the green light people will be coming through. So step 1, when you are disempowered, it's like your identity has hijacked you. So the first thing to do is stop the action. You want to actually visualize that red light in your head. Imagine yourself coming to a rapid halt in a car. Feel yourself stop. You were in motion and now you're stopped. Can you feel it? Everybody just kind of rock back and forth. Pretend you're driving in a car or bus, and all of a sudden that bus stops fast and you go, yeah, there's a movement that our body does. There's only a few times in life where stopping the action is dangerous. While you're driving on a bridge or in a tunnel is a perfect example. But most other times, stopping is easy. Step 2, declare that you're disempowered. Say it out loud. I am having a disempowering conversation. Or this is a disempowering conversation. If it's not appropriate in the circumstances, write it down. I'm having a disempowering conversation. I just put DC. I use the initials. I'm having a DC. So when I'm getting ready to go speak in front of hundreds and thousands of people, if I have a disempowering conversation, I'll write DC on the palm of my hand. Okay. And that's my declaration that I'm having one. Now, it's important to remember and talk a little bit about what we call kinetic learning. Brain science has proven that when a physical action is connected with a new learning, that new information is reinforced and a new neural pathway in your brain is created. So step 3 is change your physical location. Move to a different spot. If you're sitting, stand up, move your arms, or in some way alter your physical structure that you're in. At the very least, shift your position. We do this because we want to get to a new place. The physical shift is a big reinforcement in kinetic learning. So you're going to say you're disempowered, and while you're saying you're disempowered, and while you're saying it's not me, okay, so step 4, declare it's not you. Your authentic true self does not have disempowering conversations. In fact, your authentic true self doesn't even know what a disempowering conversation is. If you're having one, you know it's not you. So that's the time to give our body that kinetic message. So you're going to stand up, you're going to wave your arms, you're going to pat your head, whatever you do, you're going to say, I'm disempowered and it's not me. I'm disempowered and it's not me. I'm disempowered and it's not me. The final step, step 5 in the red light part of the process, is to celebrate. That's right. It's not you. It's not your authentic self. It's not the true you. You're now in charge again. You just sucked back all of the power that your identity had been controlling. And now you're back in the driver's seat. So you see, something is always driving the car called you. Either you, your authentic self, is driving it, or your identity is driving it. So we're now going to practice putting this into your system and familiarizing yourself with the process. Down below in the description, I put a link to the handout, okay? Each person will use one of your disempowering conversations and practice the red light process on it in the group. You're just going to go through these 5 steps. So you're going to say, this is my disempowering conversation. And then you're going to do step 1, stop the action. I'm declaring I'm disempowered while moving around, like patting my head, right? Or clapping or snapping. Okay. Then you're going to say, it's not me. And then you're going to celebrate, woohoo, it's not me. So everybody's going to practice that. Okay. Everybody in your group. And when everybody's practiced that, come back and share. Okay. Have at least one person share what their experience of stopping and using that red light part of the process was. All right. Have one person share. When that person shared, then start this video again. Oh, by the way, I would like it if someone would record, videotape on your phone, the person sharing. So when the person's finished sharing, videotape it and then post it in our WhatsApp group. Okay. So that all of us can listen to the sharing. It's really awesome. Really great. Okay. Pause the video and come back when you're done. Now we get to the second stage. This one is the yellow light. There's something that happens when you get to a yellow light. You pay attention. This stage takes a little intellectual effort. That's the bad news. The good news, all right, is that it gets quicker and quicker and easier with practice. So in the first phase, the red light, the work we did was a declaration. In this phase, the yellow light, it's an investigation. If your authentic true self is not running the show, who is? You're right. It's your identity. Your identity is taken over. And it's time to distinguish what the identity is up to. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions to think about. There are no right or wrong answers. They are simply places to look. What is underneath your disempowerment? What thoughts are you having? What is the actual conversation? What's at the root of it? What beliefs are causing your thoughts? What are you in reaction to? What familiar path are you taking this down, like a broken record? Now, what you're going to do is distinguish the actual words you said to yourself when you became disempowered. What did you say to yourself? What was the conversation you were having inside your head? Now, you can take a look. Chances are it fits into one of your primary themes or taproots. Now that you're clear on what the disempowering conversations are, we can go to work. And if you can't figure it out right away, don't worry. It will all come back with practice. We can actually take a look at why that conversation is there, because human beings never do anything without a reason or a purpose. We always have an agenda. Every action we take has a motivation towards something we want or away from something we don't want. Consciously or unconsciously, we never take any action unless there's something in it for us. For example, there was all kinds of actions that we took when we were kids. And then we took a bunch of other actions to try and distract our parents from finding out. Okay? We always want to avoid getting into trouble. But there was a payoff for lying to our parents. It may have been short-term gratification, but it's always there. The point is that there's something we get or something we get to avoid as a result of keeping that disempowering conversation in play. And we call this a payoff. So you're going to stop the video and see if anybody can see a payoff for themselves. Okay? In other words, something you get to avoid or something you get as a result of keeping your disempowering conversation in play. So everybody take a look at your disempowering conversations. What do you get as long as you keep that disempowering conversation going? Do you get to avoid being responsible? Do you get to avoid being great? Do you get to avoid doing some work? Are there certain people you get to avoid talking to? That's where you want to look, okay? So you want to stop and actually take a look. What are the payoffs? And that's on handout number 6. There's a link in the bottom, okay? So you want to start identifying what are all the payoffs that you get. Everybody try and come up with at least one. Help each other out. Work in pairs, okay? So everybody work with a partner and see if you can each identify at least one partner, one payoff that you're getting, okay, from keeping that conversation in play. Go ahead. And when you're all done, come on back. By the way, make sure you time this. Don't take more than 5 minutes, okay? All right, fantastic. One payoff each. That's all we're looking for. All right, welcome back. Keep in mind that you get a whole lot of things from this. The more you investigate it, the more you'll start to see how much your identity gets out of keeping that conversation in play. And it's not always easy to see. I'm an expert in this area and I have a practiced eye of a professional and can see things coming from a mile away. And it takes practice. Identifying the payoff is important, but don't get distressed if you can't see it right away. Get some help from a professional. That's why we're here. All right, fantastic. We're now moving on to the final stage, which we call the green light. What do you make green mean in our society today? Yeah, green means go. Once you're clear on your identity's motivation for running this disempowering conversation, you're ready to move to the final stage where you can take action that's consistent with reclaimed power and moves you towards what you really want. When we use the word action, we're talking about taking one step back to the path. Action is very refreshing, like a release. I don't have to be stuck anymore. One small step will put us on a different pathway with a different outcome. It could be a one-time step or a recurring step. Ideally, you have more than one option to choose from. So at this stage, you want to brainstorm a handful 3 to 5 actions that you could take immediately. Choose one. The minute that you choose, you'll feel an immediate sense of relief. That's because you have now truly, fully reclaimed your power. The great part is that the action doesn't even need to be something associated with the area that you're disempowered in. It just has to be an action that's consistent with who you say you really are, your authentic self. So you might have some questions about this. All right. Confusion is a disempowering conversation. So using the exercise you just did, you're going to share with your group one disempowering conversation and the payoff you got. Then you're going to identify and brainstorm at least 8 to 10 actions with the assistance of your group that you can take that are consistent with your authentic true self. When you're on your own, you might only brainstorm 3 to 5, but I want you to have the opportunity to see the power of having more actions to choose from and the power of creative collaboration. Write down all those actions, either on your handout or on your paper. Once each person has brainstormed, come on back and we'll complete this particular session. All right, we're back. So many of you probably got suggestions from someone in your group that you would never have thought of. Okay, we want to hear from those. So pause the video and I would like someone to share. Who had someone suggest something to you that you never would have thought of? Please record the sharing on the phone and then post it on the WhatsApp group. So here's your homework for the next session. You're going to continue to practice the red, yellow, green light process whenever you have a disempowering conversation. Something becomes possible out of using the process. We want to know what became possible for you. And we also want you to be present to what gets in the way of you practicing it. We're not really reliable as human beings about being consistent and implementing a new practice. So make sure you get a buddy before you leave today who will remind you every day to use it. Daily reminders in your calendar, having an accountability partner, right? There's all kinds of ways that you can make sure that you practice. So your homework is to practice it a minimum of 5 times between now and your next session. All right. I look forward to seeing you guys then. Take care and have a great time.